G'day, ZiggyD here. In this video I'm going to go through how to build a sealed deck in Magic the Gathering. Sealed is a limited format in which you get 6 booster packs and build a 40 card deck to face off against other players who do the same. It's most commonly played at pre-release events, which are a chance to get an early hands-on with the upcoming set before its official release. By the way, if you're watching this video when it goes up, then there's a pre-release this weekend for Hour of Devastation. Pre-release has been my personal favourite type of Magic the Gathering event, and I highly recommend checking one out at your local game store. It's well worth it for the fun and for the product value you get. It's got that exciting thrill of discovery of new cards, as well as being a good fun way to explore combinations and playstyles in a casual competitive format. So to get you ready for your next pre-release or sealed event, I'm going to go over the basics of sealed deck construction, as well as some tips and strategies I've learned so far and compiled from various sources around the internet. If you want to read up more, I'll compile a list of helpful sources in the description below. Just keep in mind that none of this is hard and fast rules. These are guidelines for you to begin with, and then you can explore out different strategies as you go and learn from there. So your pre-release box will look something like this. Inside you'll get 6 booster packs, either all from the new set or 4 from the new set and 2 from the last one. You'll also get a pre-release promo foil card from the new set. You're allowed to use this card in your sealed deck as well. So step 1 is going to be to unwrap your booster packs. While doing so, I recommend splitting them into colour piles with an extra pile or 2 for colourless and multicoloured cards. It's also handy to keep an eye out while you're doing this for any really strong cards that catch your eye, the sort of things that might pull you into going into a certain colour. These cards are typically called bombs, cards that win you the game if your opponent cannot deal with them quickly. Bombs because after a while they blow up and destroy your enemy. So once you've done this, it can then be helpful to remove the useless cards that you will never play in sealed. This is typically called removing the dirt. These cards are really niche and unlikely to be helpful most of the time, really expensive and likely won't be able to be cast, or just really weak. Not all cards in a set are designed to be good in sealed. Some might be nice when you can construct an entire deck around them, or for other formats like Commander for example, but they'll see little use in a simpler, more limited format like sealed, so taking them out early will make it easier to build your deck. Your next step should be to sort each colour into the good cards, the OK cards, and the just playable filler cards. There is no easy answer to what makes a good card in Magic the Gathering. Card evaluation is the sort of skill you build over time, and it's one of the really important distinguishing features of skill in the game. Try to think in terms of, does a card present a real threat to your opponent? Does it deal with the threats your opponent presents? Does it impact the current state of the game in a meaningful way when you play it? These are the important things to think of. For starting out, first try to look for removal cards, cards that kill or remove from the game your enemy's strong creatures. These are a priority. Secondly, look for strong creatures that threaten your opponent. You'll also want to be conscious of mana costs as well. Most of your game is going to be played in the 2 to 5 mana cost bracket in sealed. More expensive cards can be attractive, but should only be taken in limited quantities, and only if they will likely win you the game if they're played. Again, there are no easy answers here. Each set is different, and card evaluation is a big part of the challenge and fun of playing sealed. So now that you've sorted each of your colours, you should be able to see where your strongest colours are, which ones have the most good cards, and the most decent cards in general. In sealed, it's pretty unlikely that you'll get enough good cards in just one colour to play just that one colour. And similarly, it's unlikely that you will have the tools to support 3 or more colour decks. Typically, you're going to play a 2-colour combination of your best 2 colours. This is not a hard rule, of course. Having some synergy between 2 colours can influence your decision, and if you do have some really good cards in a 3rd colour, and some mana fixing to support it, then splashing in a 3rd colour can happen. A lot of the fun in sealed is in seeing what effective deck you can put together from the limited and random cards you have available. As a newer player, the most helpful thing is just going to be to look for the biggest piles of good cards, and choose 2 colours that have a good number of strong removal spells and creatures. Your strong looking rares will help sway you into a certain direction, but do make sure that you'll end up having access to those essential basics, strong creatures and removal. Remember, your opponent has bombs. They'll have some good creatures that will kill you, so make sure you have a good number of cards that can get rid of those bombs. Destroy target creature, exile target creature, deal direct damage to target creature, all of these can help. Additionally, you'll want to make sure your chosen colours have a good distribution of mana costs. Most of your creatures will be at 2, 3 and 4 mana. If you have too many very expensive creatures and not enough in these costs, then you might need to select different colours. Once you've selected your most promising looking colours, you can begin building your actual deck. So here for my deck building, I have 3 promising colours in black, blue and red. They all have some pretty good cards. However, while red has some pretty good cards in it, it doesn't have very strong synergy, and its best cards don't work well with the rest of my deck. Both blue and black, on the other hand, have some solid removal, black has a good number of creatures, and both colours have some bomb cards. My colour pairing is blue and black. The next step is to remove all of the other colours from your field of view and start cutting the number of cards down to 22 or 23. You're making a 40 card deck, but remember, you need lands, and you'll typically need 17 to 18 of them for an effective deck. Start cutting your weakest cards first, but there are a few rough guidelines you'll want to follow to start out with. Creatures are the backbone of your deck. There isn't a hard rule, but if you have enough, you'll want to be running somewhere between 16 and 20 of them. If you don't have enough creatures, you can supplement with other spells, and if you have a lot, then you can trim down your other spells to just your best removal cards. Of course, you're going to have to make some judgment calls here. If you have some really strong spells and too many creatures and some of them are not very good, then you might want to cut some of those not very good creatures in favour of some of those strong other spells. The majority of your non-creature spells should generally be effective removal cards, things that deal with your opponent's threats. Things that help you win combat and protect your creatures can be effective as well, but some direct removal is often preferable. The next thing to remember is that your mana curve is very important. Arrange your cards in mana cost order like I've done here, and take a look at your curve. You'll want very few 1 mana cost creatures, 0 to 2 typically, and that's because these are typically not very impactful. You'll also want very few cards that cost 6 or more mana, often only 1 to 2 of these. The rest should be distributed around 2, 3, 4 and 5 mana costs. The reason for this is quite simple. You want the majority of your cards to be able to be actually used in a typical game, and you also want them to be impactful when they are used. 1 mana cost cards can always be played, for example, but they're often not very impactful, and 6+ mana cost cards are often quite impactful, but often won't get a chance to actually hit the board. Again, none of these guidelines are hard rules. A higher or lower mana curve can work if your deck supports it. Cheaper aggressive decks or ramped up high cost decks can work, so if you think you have enough support to skew your mana curve a bit, then go for it. Trying changes from these basic guidelines will help you grow as a player, as you see what works and what doesn't. After picking my colours and looking at my curve, I only have to cut 2 cards. I cut 1 expensive and 1 less useful card, bringing me down to 23 total. Thankfully, my creature count looks pretty good. I have some decent removal, and my curve is reasonably good looking as well. Having to cut very few cards like this is quite common in Sealed if you already cut out your dirt cards in an earlier sorting step. Once you have your 22 or 23 cards picked out, your final step is to add land to bring you up to 40. The decision for more or less land will usually come down to your mana curve. More aggressive low cost decks can run less land, and more expensive slower decks should run more land. Your land distribution is important as well. As you're likely going to be in 2 colours to begin with, I'll focus on that. Again, there is no simple formula here. It'll take some experience and playtesting to get the hang of land ratios. To start with, the simplest method to determine land ratios is to count your mana symbols in each colour. For example, if you have 20 white and 10 black mana symbols, then you might do something like 11 plains and 6 swamps. There is, however, one more thing that can help you. Take a look at your cards. Which are your most important ones? And which of those would you absolutely want to cast as early as possible? If you have an essential card that has 2 black mana symbols and it costs 4 mana total, then you might want to add a bias towards your swamps to make sure you'll have enough black mana to cast it on turn 4. In the deck I'm building here, I have 12 blue and 15 black symbols. Looking at my cards, I have nothing super essential to cast in the early turns in blue, so I'm pretty happy to have a strong bias towards black, so I end up going with 10 swamps and 7 islands. In hindsight though, I might have been better off cutting an additional card and running 18 lands instead, as my mana curve is a little bit high. Finally, don't forget that in Sealed you can sideboard any cards from your Sealed pool. These are cards that you can swap in between games. If your opponent is using a lot of nasty artifacts, for example, you can swap in some artifact removal between games to help deal with it. The most important advice I have though is to take all of these tips as guidelines. These tips have helped me have more fun and be more effective at Sealed events, but some of the best fun I've had is straying from the formulas a bit to try new things, even if they didn't always work out. Learning those lessons and improving my card evaluation and deck construction skills has been a lot of fun, and it's really been the hook that has gotten me into Magic. If you guys have any of your own advice for sealed deck construction you'd like to share, then I'd love to read them down in the comments below. That's it for now, I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.